Emma Harrison was 9 years old and had been paralyzed from the waist down for the past 2 years. A car accident when she was 7 had left her spinal cord severely damaged. The doctors said she might never walk again. The doctors said she might never have a normal childhood. The doctors said her future looked limited and difficult. But Emma refused to give up. Every day she worked through physical therapy. Every day she pushed herself to strengthen her upper body and regain whatever mobility she could. Her spirit was unbreakable, even though her legs no longer worked. Emma's mother, Sarah, had been trying to find ways to help her daughter's emotional and mental recovery. Physical therapy had helped with Emma's body, but Sarah could see that Emma's spirit was still broken. Emma was depressed. Emma was angry. Emma had lost the joy and hope that defined childhood. One day, Sarah learned about a police dog training facility not far from their home. The facility was where retired police dogs went after they finished their careers in law enforcement. These dogs had spent years working with police officers, helping them track criminals, find missing people, and protect communities. But now they were retired and lived at the sanctuary. Sarah thought that maybe visiting the dogs might help Emma. Maybe interacting with animals could help her daughter find some joy again. So on a Saturday morning, Sarah took Emma to the police dog sanctuary. Emma was in her wheelchair, moving slowly and carefully. She was skeptical about the whole thing. She didn't understand why her mother thought being around old police dogs would help her. They were greeted by the sanctuary director, a woman named Margaret Chen. Margaret was warm and welcoming. She explained how the shelter worked and asked if Emma would like to see the dogs. "Sure," Emma said without much enthusiasm. She'd been depressed for so long that nothing excited her anymore. Margaret wheeled Emma through the facility. There were kennels with different dogs, German Shepherds, Belgian Malinois, Labrador Retrievers. All of them were retired police dogs. Most of them came over to the fence when they saw Emma, wanting attention and affection. But then Margaret led Emma to a different section of the facility. This was where the dogs with special needs were kept. Dogs that had been injured on the job or had developed problems that prevented them from working anymore. One dog in particular caught Emma's attention. His name was Duke, and he was a German Shepherd who had been a police dog for 8 years. Duke had been hit by a car while pursuing a suspect 2 years ago. The accident had left his back legs partially paralyzed. He moved with difficulty, his back legs dragging slightly. He couldn't run or jump anymore. He couldn't do the work he'd been trained to do. Duke had been retired to the sanctuary because he could no longer work as a police dog. When Duke saw Emma, something extraordinary happened. Duke got up from his bed and moved toward the fence separating them. His back legs were struggling, but he was determined to reach Emma. When he got to the fence, he pressed his nose against the metal, and Emma reached out to touch it with her hand. For the first time in 2 years, Emma smiled. A real smile. Not a forced smile to make her mother feel better, but a genuine smile of recognition and connection. "He understands," Emma whispered. "He understands what it's like." Margaret stood back quietly, watching the interaction. She'd been running the sanctuary for 5 years, and she'd never seen anything like this. Emma Harrison had been a normal, happy child before the accident. She'd loved playing outside. She'd loved sports, soccer, tennis, swimming. She'd loved being active and moving freely through the world. Then on her 7th birthday, everything changed. Emma had been walking home from a friend's house when a car had jumped the curb. The driver had suffered a heart attack and lost control of the vehicle. Emma had been hit and thrown several feet. She'd spent 2 months in the hospital recovering from various injuries, but the worst injury was to her spinal cord. The impact had caused a spinal cord contusion at the level of her thoracic spine. The doctors said the spinal cord was partially damaged, but not completely severed. They said that with physical therapy, Emma might regain some mobility. She might be able to walk again. But there were no guarantees. The spinal cord was delicate, and damage was often permanent. Emma's father, Robert, had been devastated. He'd blamed himself for not being there to protect his daughter. He'd struggled with guilt and sadness. Emma's mother, Sarah, had thrown herself into Emma's recovery, spending every day in physical therapy with her daughter, encouraging her, pushing her. Over the next 2 years, Emma had made some progress. She'd regained some sensation in her legs. She could move her legs a little bit, but not enough to walk. She was dependent on her wheelchair for mobility, and emotionally she was struggling. Emma had been depressed and angry. She'd had moments where she told her mother she wished she was dead. She'd had moments where she'd been angry at her parents for not letting her give up. She'd felt like her life was over at just 9 years old. Sarah had tried everything. She'd taken Emma to therapists. She'd enrolled her in support groups with other children who had spinal cord injuries. She tried to help Emma find purpose and meaning in her life. Nothing had worked. Emma remained depressed and hopeless. Duke, the retired police dog that Emma had met at the sanctuary, had a similar story of loss and adaptation. Duke had been born and trained to be a working police dog. From puppyhood, he'd been trained for tracking, apprehension, and protection. He'd worked with his handler, Officer Marcus Williams, for 8 years. They'd been partners, bonded in a way that only comes from years of working together. Duke loved his work. He loved the purpose of helping people, of protecting his community, of using his skills to make a difference. Being a police dog wasn't just a job for Duke. It was his identity. Then came the car accident. Duke had been chasing a suspect, and a vehicle had hit him. The impact had crushed his back legs, damaging the nerves and the spinal cord. The doctors at the veterinary hospital had said that Duke might never walk normally again. They'd recommended that Duke be euthanized because he could no longer work as a police dog. But Officer Marcus Williams had refused. Marcus loved Duke. Marcus couldn't put his partner down just because Duke couldn't work anymore. Marcus had decided that Duke deserved a retirement, deserved to live out his life in a sanctuary where he could be cared for and loved. So Duke had come to the police dog sanctuary, where he'd spent the last 2 years trying to adapt to his new life. Like Emma, Duke had struggled. He'd been depressed. He'd lost his purpose. He'd lost his identity as a working police dog. But when Emma had come to the sanctuary and pressed her hand against the fence to touch Duke's nose, something changed for both of them. Margaret Chun, the sanctuary director, recognized the significance of this moment. She'd been looking for ways to help both Emma and Duke. She'd been thinking about how animals could help people in similar circumstances adapt to life-changing injuries. And this moment, this connection between a paralyzed girl and a paralyzed dog, seemed like the beginning of something important. Margaret approached Sarah and suggested something that would change both Emma and Duke's lives. What if Emma came to visit Duke regularly? Margaret asked. What if we tried a therapy program where Emma and Duke could work together? Not physical work, but emotional work. They could help each other heal. Sarah was skeptical at first, but she saw how Emma had responded to meeting Duke. She saw a spark in her daughter's eyes that had been missing for 2 years. Sarah agreed to try it. For the first month, Emma came to the sanctuary every Saturday morning. She would spend time with Duke, petting him, talking to him, just sitting with him in his enclosure. At first, Duke was hesitant. He was still depressed and withdrawn. He'd lost hope that his life had meaning anymore. He'd been lying in his bed most of the day, not engaging with the other dogs or with the people who worked at the sanctuary. But Emma's presence changed that. Emma would come and sit with Duke, and she would talk to him about her life. She would tell him about her day at school. She would tell him about her frustrations with physical therapy. She would tell him about how angry she was that her body didn't work the way she wanted it to. Duke would listen. Duke couldn't respond with words, but he responded with his presence. He would rest his head on Emma's lap. He would lick her tears away when she cried. He would press his body against hers in a gesture of comfort and solidarity. Slowly, Duke started to change. He started to eat more. He started to move more. He started to engage with Emma in ways he hadn't engaged with anyone since his accident. Duke was coming back to life. And Emma was changing too. Emma started to smile more. Emma started to have hope again. Emma realized that Duke understood her in a way that no human could. Duke knew what it was like to lose your abilities. Duke knew what it was like to feel like your life was over. But Duke was still here. Duke was still living. After about 2 months, Margaret had an idea. She suggested that Emma and Duke start a different kind of therapy, movement therapy. Margaret thought that if Emma could help Duke exercise and strengthen his legs, and if Duke could motivate Emma to do her own physical therapy, maybe they could help each other heal. Emma and Duke started working together. On Saturday mornings, Emma would do her own physical therapy exercises while Duke did his rehabilitation exercises. Emma would encourage Duke to move his back legs, even though the movement was difficult and painful. Duke would be there, present and struggling just like Emma was struggling. Margaret documented the process. She took videos and photos. She wrote notes about the progress Emma and Duke were making. What she discovered was remarkable. Emma's progress in physical therapy started to accelerate. Emma was motivated by the desire to help Duke. Emma was willing to push herself harder because she could see that Duke was pushing himself hard too. And Duke's progress was remarkable as well. With Emma's encouragement and with Margaret's guidance, Duke was actually regaining some mobility in his back legs. His muscles were getting stronger. His confidence was returning. One day, about 6 months after Emma and Duke first met, something incredible happened. Duke tried to stand on his back legs. It was clumsy and uncertain, but for the first time since his accident, Duke was standing on all 4 legs. He wobbled and fell back down after just a few seconds, but the fact that he'd done it was a victory. Emma cheered. Emma celebrated like Duke had just won an Olympic medal. And then Emma tried something she hadn't tried since her accident. She tried to stand. With Duke on one side and Margaret on the other side, Emma pushed herself up. Her legs were shaking. Her body was uncertain. But Emma stood. For the first time in 2 years, Emma was standing on her own 2 legs. Emma only stood for 5 seconds before her strength gave out and she had to sit back down. But she'd done it. Emma had walked again. Not walked exactly, but stood. And standing was progress. Emma fell to the ground next to Duke and hugged him tightly. Both of them were trembling. Emma with tears of joy, Duke with the physical exertion of his own effort. Margaret was witnessing a miracle. She was watching 2 beings, both carrying the weight of catastrophic injury, helping each other find the strength to keep living. She was watching healing happen in real time. She immediately called Sarah and told her what had happened. Sarah rushed to the sanctuary and watched as Emma and Duke did their exercises together. Sarah saw her daughter smile for the first time in 2 years. A genuine smile of hope and purpose. The video of Emma standing for the first time with Duke went viral on social media. Margaret had recorded it, and a friend of Sarah's had shared it. Within days, millions of people had seen the video of the paralyzed girl and the paralyzed dog helping each other find the strength to stand. News outlets started calling Margaret at the sanctuary. Media companies wanted to interview Emma and Duke. Animal rights organizations wanted to feature their story. The sanctuary was suddenly receiving donations and attention from all over the world. But Margaret and Sarah were careful about how they handled the attention. They didn't want Emma to feel like she was being exploited. They didn't want Duke to be stressed by too much contact with the media. They allowed a few carefully selected interviews, but mostly they focused on continuing the therapy work with Emma and Duke. What emerged from the publicity was something unexpected. Other children and adults with spinal cord injuries and mobility challenges started contacting the sanctuary. They wanted to know if they could work with Duke too. They wanted to know if they could experience the same kind of healing that Emma had found. Margaret realized that what she and Emma and Duke had created was something revolutionary. They discovered that animal therapy, specifically working with dogs that had also experienced spinal cord injuries, could be incredibly healing for people dealing with similar injuries. Margaret started a new program called Paralyzed. The program paired people with spinal cord injuries with retired or injured service dogs. The idea was that by helping each other, both the humans and the animals could find purpose, motivation, and healing. Emma became the face of the Paralyzed program. Emma and Duke started traveling to different cities, giving talks about their journey and demonstrating the power of animal therapy. Emma also started a blog where she documented her recovery and her work with Duke. Through the Paralyzed program and continued physical therapy, Emma's mobility improved dramatically. 1 year after her breakthrough moment with Duke, Emma was able to walk short distances with leg braces and a walker. 2 years later, Emma was walking without any assistive devices. She still had limitations. She would never be able to play soccer or run as she used to, but she was mobile. She was walking. Duke's recovery was equally remarkable. Duke regained full mobility in his back legs. His muscles grew strong again. His confidence returned. Though Duke could no longer work as a police dog, Duke found a new purpose. as a therapy dog working with Emma and helping other people through the Parallel Paths program. Officer Marcus Williams, Duke's former handler, came to visit the sanctuary one day. He watched as Duke worked with a young man named Thomas who had become paralyzed after a gunshot wound. Duke was helping Thomas through his exercises, offering both physical support and emotional comfort. Marcus stood there watching, tears streaming down his face. He'd made the right decision by refusing to euthanize Duke. He'd given Duke a second life, a second purpose. And that choice had led to the creation of a program that was helping hundreds of people. Marcus approached Margaret. "Thank you," Marcus said. "Thank you for believing in Duke. Thank you for helping him find purpose again. I knew he deserved better than death, but I didn't imagine this. I didn't imagine he would help so many people." "Duke was always a hero," Margaret replied. "First as a police dog protecting the community, now as a therapy dog helping people heal. His purpose changed, but his essence, his desire to help, never wavered." Emma also maintained a close relationship with Officer Marcus. Marcus would visit the sanctuary regularly, and he would watch as Duke worked with people. Marcus had discovered that his love for Duke didn't depend on Duke being a working police dog. Marcus loved Duke as a being, not as a tool, and that unconditional love was what gave Duke the freedom to transition to his new purpose. 5 years after Emma first met Duke at the sanctuary, Emma was 17 years old and preparing to go to college. She had almost fully recovered her mobility. She could walk without assistive devices. She could run, though not as fast as she once had. She could drive. She could participate in most normal teenage activities. But more importantly, Emma had purpose. Emma had hope. Emma understood that injury and disability didn't have to mean the end of a meaningful life. Emma had decided to study animal therapy and rehabilitation. She wanted to help other people experience what she'd experienced, the healing power of working with animals that had also been through trauma and recovery. Duke was also thriving. Duke was 11 years old now, nearing the end of his life for a dog, but he was living his best life. He was loved and cherished. He was helping people every day through the Parallel Paths program. Hundreds of people had worked with Duke over the years, and each person had been touched by his presence and his courage. The police dog sanctuary had become a center for animal therapy research. Universities were studying the outcomes of people who worked with injured or retired police dogs. The data showed remarkable results. People who participated in the Parallel Paths program had better emotional outcomes, better physical recovery, and better long-term quality of life than control groups. Margaret had published several scientific papers about the program. The Parallel Paths program had been adopted by other sanctuaries and rehabilitation centers across the country. Hundreds of injured people were now working with retired or injured service dogs, experiencing the same kind of healing that Emma and Duke had experienced together. One day, Emma was back at the sanctuary for a special event. The sanctuary was celebrating 10 years of helping retired and injured police dogs. Emma was giving a speech about her journey. Emma stood in front of an audience, using only her own 2 legs, no assistive devices. She looked out at the crowd and saw families, people in wheelchairs, people with mobility challenges, and many, many dogs. "When I first came to this sanctuary 5 years ago, I was paralyzed," Emma said. "Not just physically. I was emotionally and spiritually paralyzed too. I'd lost hope. I'd lost purpose. I'd lost the will to keep fighting." She paused, looking at Duke standing beside her. "Then I met Duke," Emma continued. "And Duke understood me in a way nobody else could. Duke had also been paralyzed. Duke had also lost his purpose. Duke had also felt like his life was over. But Duke was still here. Duke was still trying. And that gave me hope." Emma reached down and stroked Duke's head. "We healed each other," Emma said. "It wasn't a one-way process. It wasn't that I healed Duke or that Duke healed me. We healed each other by showing up for each other, by pushing ourselves for each other, by refusing to give up for each other." She looked directly at the audience. "If you're dealing with injury or disability or loss of mobility," Emma said, "please know that your life still has value. Please know that you can still find purpose. Please know that there are other beings, animals, people, community, who want to help you heal. And if you can, please reach out and help someone else heal too. Because healing works both ways." Emma finished her speech to a standing ovation. The audience was moved by her story, by her courage, by her journey from despair to hope. Later that evening, Emma was sitting with Duke in a quiet area of the sanctuary. Duke was getting older. His muzzle had turned gray. He was moving more slowly, but he was still here. He was still alive. He was still present. "Thank you," Emma whispered to Duke, hugging him. "Thank you for being here. Thank you for helping me. Thank you for showing me that you could be broken and still be whole." Duke rested his head on Emma's chest, and they sat together in the quiet evening, two beings who had been shattered by life but had found wholeness through connection with each other. Years later, when Emma was in college studying animal therapy, she would tell her classmates and professors about Duke. She would explain how working with an injured animal had taught her more about resilience, about finding purpose, and about the healing power of unconditional connection than any textbook or lecture ever could. She would tell them about the day she first stood on her own two legs. She would tell them about Duke wobbling to his feet. She would tell them that they were both terrified and determined and hopeful all at the same time. She would tell them that disability doesn't define a person's worth. She would tell them that purpose can be found even after catastrophic loss. She would tell them that healing is possible when we show up for each other with honesty, courage, and love. And every year, Emma would return to the sanctuary to work with Duke and with the other people and animals who were part of the Parallel Paths program. Because Emma understood that she had been given a gift, the gift of healing, the gift of hope, the gift of purpose. And she was committed to paying that gift forward. Final call to action. If this story moved you, if it made you believe in the healing power of connection and compassion, then I need you to do something right now. Hit that like button. Share this video with someone. It could be someone who's dealing with physical disability or emotional pain, someone who loves an animal, or someone who needs to be reminded that healing is possible. Subscribe to our channel so you never miss these stories about resilience, recovery, and the extraordinary power of connection between humans and animals. Because here's the truth. Disability and injury don't define your value as a person. Your ability to walk or move or see or hear doesn't determine your worth. Your worth comes from who you are, from your spirit, from your capacity to love and connect with others and find meaning in your life. If you're dealing with a spinal cord injury or any kind of disability, please know that your life still has value and purpose. Please know that recovery, whether physical or emotional, is possible. Please reach out to organizations that can help you. Please connect with other people who are going through similar experiences. Please consider animal therapy. Studies have shown that it can be incredibly healing. And if you have a dog or any animal that you love, please know that that relationship matters. Please know that your pet doesn't just love you. Your pet can actually help heal you. Animals have a remarkable capacity for compassion and connection. They can sense when we're hurting, and they can offer comfort in ways that words never could. Leave a comment below and tell us, have you ever experienced the healing power of an animal? Have you or someone you love dealt with a spinal cord injury or disability? Have you seen someone recover and find purpose after a life-changing event? Share your story in the comments. Your experience might inspire someone else to believe in healing and hope. Also, if you're interested in animal therapy or supporting retired and injured service dogs, look for sanctuaries and organizations in your area that might be doing this important work. Organizations like the Police Dog Sanctuary and programs like Parallel Paths are making a real difference in people's lives. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We release new stories every single week about the healing power of connection, about people and animals overcoming impossible odds, and about finding purpose and hope even after devastating loss. We'll see you in the next video. Stay hopeful, stay connected, and remember, healing is possible, and it often comes from the most unexpected places. Thank you so much for watching.